Marcy, and thank you everybody for joining us. I'm excited to be here to talk about networking over the holidays, a very timely topic as we are kind of downhill to the new year. It seems like we hit November and time just flies. I hope this will be an interactive session. So, for those of you that are here live, please feel free to chat your questions into the box below, and Marcy will interrupt every once in a while and let me know when I have a question from the audience. I'm happy to address those as we go, so feel free to chat away. And if you don't mind, if you are listening live, please mute your microphone so we don't hear any background noise. That would be great. I know oftentimes we are multitasking while while watching these or listening in. So if you don't mind muting yourself, that would be wonderful. So for those of you who do not know me, I will make this very brief. My name is Catherine Tuttle, and I own Forward Thinking Resumes and Careers, and I am thrilled to be the coach for the UNC General Alumni Association. So in my role, I work with alumni one-on-one, meet you where you are to help address any aspect of your career development, whether that is job search related or more career development related. You get your one free session a year, one complimentary session, and maybe after this, if you have questions or want to set up a time to talk, we'll give you the information on how to set that up. Oftentimes these webinars can generate questions from people or kind of identify an area where they might need some coaching. So without further ado, let's jump into the topic. And as the song goes, it's the most wonderful time of the year. There's lots of exciting things going on, so much food, so much fun, friends, family, and networking. I know it is hard to believe that we're already halfway through November. It absolutely blows my mind, but Thanksgiving is next week. And as I said, it's all down here from there. Before you know it, we'll be ringing in the new year. And I understand that during this time of year, it is very tempting to put your job search aside and to focus on that never-ending to-do list. We have holiday cards to purchase. We have presents we need to buy. We are traveling. We're trying to figure out our itineraries. So much planning, so much packing, all that jazz. But it is really important this time of year to maintain some momentum. If you're already in a job search mode, please, please, please don't stop. And if you're thinking about launching a job search or about making a change, in the new year, it really is a great time to get going. If you have listened to other webinars or if you have started doing some reading on the modern job search, you have probably heard that networking is still the single most important thing you can do to advance your efforts. And lucky for you, the holidays were made for networking. So please, please, please take advantage of the holiday season to reconnect with contacts and expand outside of your immediate circle. With all the parties and the celebrations and the family gatherings, November and December really are a great opportunity to meet a large number of people with minimal effort on your part. So I know that for some of you, the idea of getting dressed up to go mingle with 100 of your closest friends sounds like agony. I have been there. I understand there are times where it's hard for me to drag myself out, but it is really a necessary evil. And so to help make things less intimidating, we're going to talk through this afternoon some different scenarios that you might come across and then give you some tips to help boost your confidence in this process. So many options, so little time this time of year. Over the next few slides, I'm going to go through networking in a few different settings. Over the holidays, there are going to be a plethora of events for you to choose from. Like I said, from office parties to cocktail parties with friends, parties hosted by professional organizations and associations like the Chamber of Commerce and Young Professional Groups, and more. And because we're overwhelmed with invitations, we often neglect general networking, so that outreach to recruiters and hiring managers and alumni working within companies of interest. So I'm actually going to start today with that and then move on to some of the more obvious events and invitations that will come your way. I want to hit both of those points today. And like I said, if you are just joining us, feel free to chat your questions in as we go. I'm happy to stop and address them while we're on that specific topic. So the holiday season is great for proactive networking because so many managers and other employees have a little bit more breathing room than they typically do. You know, their phones are ringing less often, they're getting fewer emails overall, and they're in fewer meetings because many colleagues and customers are taking extra time off around these holidays. So take advantage of this opportunity to ramp up your proactive networking. If you've watched the webinar that we did on job search strategy, then you know that I recommend identifying companies of interest in your target area. By the way, if you have not watched that webinar, I think that would be a great way to spend an hour. When you have time, we go through how to set up a job search strategy and talk a lot about how to find contacts and that type of thing. So if you haven't watched it, I encourage you to log into the GAA site and check it out. But if you have a list of companies, this is a great time to start identifying contacts within those companies and starting to reach out. You want to ask for 20 to 30 minutes to chat over the phone, or if they're up for it, which they often are this time of year, meet for coffee. They're more likely to schedule a call or a meeting when things are quiet than they are the beginning of the year when things are starting to ramp back up. Use this opportunity to make key connections at the companies you're most interested in, and keep in mind that while they may not have postings visible now, they may have opportunities that they're planning to post in January when things pick up steam again. So all too often when things are busy, we're in reactive job search mode and we're applying for things when we see them come up, and maybe we're following up with people as we should be after we apply. But this is a great time of year to focus on that proactive networking. So whether or not, regardless of whether there's a job posting, if there are key companies that you're interested in, this is the perfect time to reach out and start to build that relationship without the added pressure of a posting. You might also think about this time of year reaching out to recruiters in your area of interest. I was actually just last week having coffee with a woman who recruited at Fidelity here in the Triangle for 10 years. And she reiterated to me how eager she was to connect with potential candidates in November and December. While she didn't necessarily fill a lot of positions in December, she was building her pipeline in anticipation of spring openings. She didn't always know what those would be, so she actually targeted a much wider market than she would have during the busy time of year. If you're not sure which recruiters to reach out to, we did do a webinar on how to work with recruiters, but if you're unsure, a great place to start is to chat with friends and family or colleagues whom you trust and others in your industry who you trust to see who they've worked with. Referrals are a wonderful way to connect with recruiters. You can also check out your local Triangle, or not Triangle Business Journal, but your local business journal. The local business journal here is the Triangle Business Journal, and your Chamber of Commerce. Both of those organizations have resources associated with hiring in your area, so they're great to check out. It is really, really easy to get distracted this time of year. So I would also recommend setting networking goals for yourself each week and add them to your calendar so you're holding yourself accountable. Whether that is, I'm going to send 4 emails each week and try to set up 1 or 2 phone calls or coffee meetings each week. I want you to build some time in and kind of work towards those goals. To find alumni in areas of interest or companies of interest, you can obviously use LinkedIn, but for those who aren't aware, there's also an alumni directory through the GAA. And within that alumni directory, there's an incredible advisor network, which is made up of alumni who have offered to be a resource to fellow UNC grads. So to find that alumni directory, if you haven't been utilizing that, you can visit the GAA website and be sure to run an advanced search to optimize your efforts. I believe we kind of walked through that process in the job search webinar as well, but of course, if you have questions, you can let us know.
Hey, Catherine. There is one question just about if you have other ideas for identifying recruiters, if you don't, have know of any referrals.
Yes. So, like I said, the Chamber of Commerce, typically on their website, they have a list of partner companies, and recruiters are often partner companies with the Chamber. The larger, more established recruiters are often those partners. I would also look, depending on your field, those professional associations that offer networking and different conferences and that type of thing throughout the year. Often recruiters within that space target those. So you might look to see if they've sponsored, if recruiters have sponsored an American Marketing Association, event in your area, or different technology events if you're on the technology side. And then the business journals, so in general, the business journal has information, but each year, a lot of the business journals put out something called a book of lists, and that breaks down companies in large metropolitan areas into categories, so the top 25 commercial construction companies and the top 25 marketing agencies and that type of thing. Staffing and recruiting is typically one of those categories, so that's another great way to find those. Those would be my 3 main suggestions. Feel free to keep those questions coming, or if you want me to follow up on that, I'm happy to follow up. So in the meantime, let's go to office networking, because in addition to the proactive networking that I would like for you to do, there's also going to be plenty of opportunity for you to socialize within your current organization. And I can't stress enough how important it is to network within your organization, whether or not you're in a job search and whether or not it's the holiday season. That said, this time of year does have its advantages when it comes to building relationships internal to your organization. So not only can you network with people within who are in your department, but there's also typically opportunities to expand your reach and meet people across the organization. So there's your kind of office party, and then there's the company-wide party. And so we're going to talk through both of those, why they're important and how to leverage them. So let's start with the holiday staff lunch, right? This happens in almost every organization. It's happened in every organization I've worked for, where everybody in your department gets together and has some sort of potluck or lunch out or cocktail party. Rather than sit next to your work buddy, your work BFF, or your work wife, we call them a lot of different things, I would love for you to sit next to someone that you don't know, maybe someone you'd like to work with more closely. I know that your first instinct may be to sit next to colleagues you click with naturally. I get that. But here's the deal. If you can grab lunch or drinks with these people anytime, then take the opportunity to meet someone new. Maybe it's someone, like I said, that you want to work with more closely. Maybe you're hoping to collaborate with someone on an upcoming project. Maybe there's a colleague who just always seems so busy and you can't quite catch up with them. Or maybe there's just somebody new who you don't know a lot about. Broaden your exposure here. You never know what will happen. You might walk away with a friend, a collaborator, or even an advocate for you within in the organization. And while it may sound counterintuitive, and I'll delve into this some more, I want you to skip the work chat in this setting. So use this time to ask this person where they're spending their holidays or what their favorite food is to indulge in this time of year. Your goal is to build a connection with someone on a more personal level that will motivate him or her to make more time to hear your work ideas later. Once you've chatted for a while, you can mention you'd love to get a meeting on the calendar. And now you're laying the groundwork for follow-up, but you're doing it in a way that incentivizes them to follow up with you. So I would suggest a similar approach if you're going to a multi-stakeholder office party. So this could be where different departments come together, where leadership comes in to congratulate you all on another successful year. Sometimes we bring clients in to celebrate alongside the team. In any case, while you're still hoping to make a personal connection, in these instances, it's important to also come prepared with talking points. So let me explain. Let's say your co-attendees could be clients, they could be donors, they could be staff. Your goal at this type of event is to be an ambassador for your company and for your work specifically. So perhaps you look at the attendee list and you realize that there's a good chance you could bump into a board member who you communicate with virtually. He's always asking how things are on the East Coast. Then imagine how great you're going to look if you're able to kind of tell them about a recent event or win and kind of catch them up on what's going on where you are. Or maybe you're finally able to meet a client in person, right? So much of our work is virtual these days. We're working, across different time zones, and oftentimes during the holidays, people come together. So, feel free to begin with holiday topics, but come armed with some numbers on your latest project. This is an opportunity for you to put a face to your email signature and coming prepared and being able to kind of quickly build some rapport personally, but then also highlight some wins over the past year is going to make a really positive impression. So the key to success in this scenario is preparation. The advantage, again, of all this year in networking is that employers often have new positions approved for the start of the year. So perhaps the person you met with will have a need and remember the positive impression you made. Or maybe the position is in another part of the organization, but you can use your contact to get your resume sent along. Or there's even a chance you'll be given a heads up about a position that will be opening up. So while the formal hiring process may slow down a bit with key players and key stakeholders on vacation, it's really critical for you to move this search forward and to attend these events within your company and come in prepared to make a positive impression and quickly kind of build some rapport with people. Marcy, any questions here, or should I keep going?
Keep going.
Okay. We'll do that. just like at work functions, the easy thing at a social gathering, and there are many of these over the holiday season, is to hang out with people that you already know. But to expand your network, I would encourage you to introduce yourself to at least 2 new people. A trick that I use, and I am one of those people, I am an extrovert, but I get nervous going into large groups of people that I don't know. It's intimidating. It is hard. I get that. I can empathize. One of the tricks that I use is if I know the host well, we'll go up to the host and say, is there anybody here you think I should meet? And that makes it easier for me, if I can go up to somebody and say, hey, my name's Catherine, so-and-so suggested that I introduce myself. She says we have a lot in common. How's your evening going? Yeah, that type of thing. That makes it easier for me personally to introduce myself. It kind of gives me the courage I need. Having that stamp of approval makes it just a little bit less nerve-wracking. So if the host doesn't have suggestions, or let's say, you're going, it's a mutual friend, but you don't know the host that well, try just picking 1 or 2 people who look a bit lost, or those who aren't in a big group. Oftentimes these can be partners who've come with their significant other to the event. They're often feeling a bit nervous or left out, and really appreciate people coming up and talking to them. So to start the conversation, it's always nice to ask, how do you know the host? That's an easy way to get something going. Perhaps you have something in common. Maybe you all go to the same gym. Maybe you all went to the same school or have a mutual friend in common. That's a great way to start a conversation. Or ask them what their plans are for the holidays. Ask them where they're from, what they do for a living. Hopefully one of these topics will spark a conversation around something that the 2 of you have in common. Take the time to build trust by focusing on a personal connection. Work may come up, and certainly, you can ask questions about their work, and that's a good way to see if it might be a connection that could be advantageous to you, but it shouldn't be the focus of the conversation. If you do decide the person may be a good contact to follow up with, then ask for a business card, or leave yours, right? If you're out networking and you meet someone who might be a potential client, obviously you could give them your traditional business card associated with the company you're working for. But if you are looking at making a move outside of your company, this would be a good time of year to order some personal business cards. It's easy to do. It's super inexpensive. Vistaprint, I think you can get 100 for like $25 or something like that. They ship free. It's pretty quick. But just have your name, your email, your phone number, maybe your LinkedIn address, and either quick overview of your area of expertise or your key skills, but something to leave with someone in case they don't have a business card with them. It's always a nice touch. It's not required. You can certainly follow up with the host if you need to, or just write their name and email on your phone. But the focus, again, should be on that personal relationship in the beginning. I think this is an important point, quality over quantity. So I think it's important to build on this a little bit. Your goal at these events is not to meet everyone at every party. That is not realistic, and it really won't lead to meaningful connections in most cases. Your goal should be to establish a few solid connections at each event that provide context for future contact. The conversation should be focused on the person you're speaking with, not you and not your job search. That can come later after you've built some trust and rapport. When first introduced, I would always plan to focus on showing a genuine interest in their lives, their interests, and their career. That said, if asked, I would be ready to clearly and concisely tell people what you do and how you add value. You need to have that introduction that rolls off your tongue in case the conversation does go in that direction. But I wouldn't lead with it. If you're worried about keeping the conversation going, people often get nervous about this. You know, it's a little bit more laid back in this setting, in a social setting or a networking setting within your job. So just go in and have some questions in your head that you're ready to ask to kind of keep things moving. Again, how do you know the host or hostess is always an easy one? Or who else do you know here? You know, if you have kind of a general relationship with them, how's the family? How are your kids? Are you staying in town for the holidays? Any plans in the works for next year that you're particularly excited about? What are you doing for New Year's? You know, what's your favorite experience from 2017? Did you go anywhere? Did you do anything that stands out? These are the kinds of questions that, again, show an interest in them. It's their opinion. They don't have to prepare for it. You're not quizzing them. But hopefully we'll find something in common that we can leverage in the follow-up. I had a client recently who asked the host at it was the Duke Faculty Club, so you know, a social kind of pool racquetball setting for people who work at Duke or affiliated with Duke. You know, he asked the host, "Is there anybody here you think I should meet?" He said, "Oh, you should go meet so-and-so. He's also a lawyer at blah, blah, blah." And he sat down with him and had a 30-minute conversation about their love of tennis, right? Nothing about work, nothing about his job search. He's looking for an in-house position. And yet a week later, he's able to send an email and say, "Gosh, that was such a great conversation. Enjoyed talking with you. Hope the tournament went well this past weekend. Not sure if you realize this, but I'm actually thinking about moving in-house. I'd love to pick your brain for 20 minutes over the phone or a cup of coffee to learn more about your experience." At that point, because he took the time to show interest, he followed up. You know, he referenced something in the conversation. The guy wrote back and said, "Sure thing, sounds great. I'd be happy to help." So that kind of illustrates how we can build that connection without leading with ourselves. I know that the idea of talking to someone you don't know can be really nerve-wracking, but the good news is, in most of these situations, you shouldn't be doing a whole lot of talking. You should be asking good questions, and you should be listening. Last year, I had the pleasure of hearing Tim Flood speak, and Tim is an associate professor at Keenan-Flagler Business School, and he was giving a presentation on the topic of networking. And he reiterated that point, right, that listening can be as important, if not more important, than talking, because listening shows that genuine interest and builds rapport. It also allows you to connect on a deeper level and ask better follow-up questions. And as an added bonus, if you're really listening, you know, he reiterated the fact that you may learn things about the individual or the company or the industry that you can leverage in your job search or in a later conversation. The second thing he said that really resonated with me and kind of described in a clear and concise way, you know, we all have insecurities and worry about whether people are going to like us, whether they're going to make a good impression when we're meeting new people. So he shared a formula that he uses with his students when they're going into networking events, you know, post-MBA or during the MBA program, meeting with employers to help them prepare. So he said that the key to being likable is to be clear, concise, and authentic. Clear, concise, and authentic. In doing so, you are respecting that person's time by having clear and thoughtful questions that allow you to find common ground and show a genuine interest in that person. And if you do that, you are going to make a positive impression. And that's something, a relationship that you can start to build over time. That person can then become someone that hopefully can serve as a resource or a referral in the future. And finally, I know this goes without saying, but I have to say it for holiday parties because there tends to be alcohol involved. Please, please, please limit how much you drink at these functions. If you are really serious about your job search and really serious about leveraging these connections, it is fine to have a good time. I'm not saying don't have a sip of alcohol, but please don't feel like you need to be the life of the party. Act like a professional. This goes in a social setting where there's people you'd like to meet, or a professional setting. Just monitor that. Any questions on this, Marcy?
None so far.
Okay, good. Well, I'm leaving plenty of time for questions at the end, so I will keep moving, and if things come up, we'll address them. Finally, when it comes to holidays, we can't ignore family, as much as we may like to. Family is everywhere. And I want you to think about the conversations that you're having at the dinner table with family. How often does work come up? If your family is anything like my family, it comes up all too often. But all too often, we stay very surface level. So people say, how's work? And you say, oh, it's great. How's the new job going? Oh, it's fine. It's busy, that kind of thing. Or we take the time to vent about things that are going wrong, right? Or how unhappy we are in our job, right? And that's natural because these are people you're comfortable around. Sometimes this is, you just need to get it out, or, you just don't want to get into work, so you stay high level. But if you're in a job search, thinking about starting one, it's really better to be more strategic, and rather than focus on your current situation, try to focus on your key skills and your values and what you're looking for going forward. I was thinking about this. You're probably, going, why should I talk to my aunt who's a first grade teacher, or my cousin's new boyfriend who's in finance, about my work optimizing websites, right? I mean, oftentimes we just don't see the immediate connection, but because your family counts as a part of your network, your aunt's friend or your cousin's former colleague may be a great contact, but you will never know if you shy away from talking about work. And if you're on the job hunt and just hoping to dodge questions about your employment status, please think again. Instead, try to talk about your skills and what you hope to be doing. I just had this conversation with an alum who's starting to think about going back to work after a career break. And, she's worried about, how to start that conversation. And she's not sure about job titles at this point, or she's like, I can't say I want to be a project manager, or I want to be communication specialist. I don't know, and so a lot of what we talked about was, what are the key skills that you have, right? And what are you looking for in a new opportunity? And so we talked through that and came up with a quick kind of high-level summary for her to kind of introduce the idea of her going back to work, and also kind of what she was thinking. I am looking for, opportunities that allow me to leverage my relationship building skills, my project management skills, and my ability to motivate teams to meet their goals. And I want to do that in an environment where I feel valued and I feel like the company is adding value in the boardroom and in the community. Putting that out there and starting to have that conversation is so important. And, it may be that your aunt isn't going to be a great connector, but if nothing else, your aunt is a safe space to practice that elevator speech and maybe bounce some ideas off of. right? I think it's important to not shy away from this conversation, and try to stay positive, and leverage the connections that you know you have and may not know you have. So hopefully that helps in terms of thinking through how to position if you're not sure exactly what you want to do. There's a question about whether you should use the Tiara framework in networking during the holidays. If they're talking about work, should we use at least the first several questions in that framework? So I know the Tiara framework. I worked with Steve Dalton at Duke when he was writing that book. Off the top of my head, I do not know what those first few questions are. If you want to share those, that would be super helpful. I have the book. I could look them up, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. Certainly if you are doing that proactive networking and you're talking to hiring managers, or you're talking about, or you're reaching out to alumni who are working in companies of interest or area of interest, it's okay to focus on the professional versus the personal, because you've made that clear in your outreach. For the more general networking, I would probably steer clear of some of the deep dive professional questions, because people don't go to social parties to talk about work the whole time necessarily. But if you want to type those questions in, that would be super helpful, and I'm happy to give you my opinion on that. For those of you that don't know, she's referencing a book called The 2-Hour Job Search. It's one that I have referenced in other presentations, and it gives you that job search.
Catherine, the T is trends, the I is insight. I think I'm pulling together the rest now.
Okay. Yeah, if you're doing that proactive networking that we talked about in terms of, again, reaching out to hiring managers, or reaching out to recruiters, or reaching out to alumni who are also in, marketing positions. Let's say you're looking at, either moving up to a marketing manager position, or looking to transition into marketing, then certainly asking questions about trends and insights that they have about the industry, especially if you're not currently in it, would be great. I would probably shy away from that on my initial conversation at a more social gathering. That would be a great thing to discuss in a follow-up meeting for sure, once you've laid that groundwork. If you think of other things or they're typed in, then feel free to.
She said advice, but she said you've already answered the question, so I think we're good to go.
Perfect. Okay. So whether it's your cousin, whether it's a former client, a recruiter, or a new social acquaintance, the key to success and kind of leveraging these contacts that you're making is going to be follow-up. You really want to try to keep the momentum after you meet. So if you have a card, if you got their card, that's great. It's nice to send, great to meet you email. From there, definitely send a LinkedIn connection request. That's a great way to kind of stay in their professional social network, but also to see who their other connections are. So taking that, another layer out. Obviously, if you don't have their email, you can look them up on LinkedIn and send a request, a note that way. Either way, you want to make sure that that LinkedIn introduction is a personal one. I know that it is super easy, especially if you already know somebody or if you've met somebody, to just send that, general, I want to add you to my network request. And if you're on a phone, it automatically does that. So be careful about that. You might want to do this on your desktop or your laptop where you have the option to personalize. But I really would love for you to send a personalized connection request. So great to meet you. Enjoyed talking with you. Would love to stay connected here. Maybe get together, later on in the month or next year. whatever the case may be, but please make it personal and continue to kind of honor that relationship and build rapport. And then as we move towards the new year, maybe we send another greeting, you know, wishing holiday cheer or wishing them the best in 2018. And ideally, we want to get a meeting on the calendar. So just like I said with the two lawyers who were talking about tennis, you know, so great to meet you. If you have some time between now and you know, Christmas vacation, which is, you know, typically people are out for a stretch, maybe we could grab coffee. I'd love to hear more about you know, your experience with Company X, or learn more about your industry. It's one I've thought about for, you know, some time, something along those lines. But try to get something on the calendar for either later that year or, you know, early January as things are starting to pick up. Remember, January is when we're going to see kind of that rush of activity. January, February, and into the spring is when the hiring will pick back up. And so we want to be top of mind and have those conversations either over this time of year, over the next couple months, or early in January. So, in summary, again, I'm trying to keep these shorter so we have plenty of time for questions and respect people's time. Please say yes to the invitations. Not all of them. I get that that's probably not realistic, but pick a few things. Definitely the office parties, if at all possible, and maybe a couple social gatherings, so that you are kind of going out there and expanding your network and meeting new people. You know, be focused. Again, maybe you can't go to everything, but you know, you're going to pick a couple, you know, professional associations that you want to, you know, get plugged in with, and, you know, one or two social gatherings. Set some goals. Again, it's easy to get distracted this time of year. So having this on your calendar, treating it like, you know, a part of your day, you know, block out that lunch and say twice a week I'm going to send introduction emails, or I'm going to spend an hour over lunch twice a week trying to identify contacts, looking within the alumni directory, sending some emails. When you set up those meetings, or, you know, in a more social setting, be prepared with questions and just listen, right? Again, listening is the best thing that you can do to build rapport with somebody and show genuine interest. There's been some quotes floating around lately about, you know, people listening to listen and not listening to reply. I think that's a good summary of networking over the holidays. Listening, finding a connection, and leveraging that to keep the conversation going. And if you can, it's always nice to add value for the other person. If it's a recruiter, ask them, you know, if you can be of help to them, if there's particular, you know, candidates they're looking for that you could, you know, pipe into your network for, you know, if it's a personal connection and you see, you know, an article on something they find interesting or a place they're traveling to, just send them a note. If you hear that somebody's traveling to New York for Christmas and you find an article online about the 10 best restaurants in New York, that's a great reason to follow up with somebody and show that you're interested in them and kind of invested in that relationship. So, hey, hope you're doing well. Saw this article. I know you're traveling to New York. You know, let me know if you check out any of these restaurants. Again, we're building that relationship for contact later on. Okay, so I have plenty of time for questions, and in the meantime, while people are thinking about them or typing them in, I wanted to share this with you. If you're interested in scheduling a coaching session, this is how you do it. You just email Marcy, and she will connect us over email. So it's the official channel for us to work together. But again, you get that complimentary session with your membership. And if you have questions about this or any other topic related to the job search or career development, I'd love to spend an hour with you.
So far, Catherine, I don't see anything in the box, but I'm keeping an eye out.
No problem. Well, I'm happy to hang out here and wait for questions if anything comes up. Otherwise, again, feel free to schedule that session. If you're thinking about launching a job search over the Gila days or early next year, we'd love to be a resource. Marcy, I'm happy to hang out. I'm sure you don't want a long recording of, of no sound, but if you want me to hang out for a few more minutes, I'm happy to do that. But
that's great, and I'll pause the recording for that reason. And then
perfect.
if others want to hang out and have questions too, we'll still be here for another. We'll endure the silence for another 4 or 5 minutes in case people have questions.
Oh no, I'm happy to take your question. What's your question?
Awesome. So Joseph Canali, I graduated in 2015. I work at Cisco now,
Okay.
joined right out of UNC. I was curious about these coaching sessions. Are these group sessions or are they one-on-one?
No, they're one-on-one. Yep, so you would just email Marcy and she'll connect you to me, and then we set up a time that is mutually beneficial. And if you're in the Triangle, which you obviously are, we can meet in person, or if it's easier, we can do it over Skype or over the phone or Google Hangout, whatever you prefer.
Okay. I actually relocated from the Triangle, but
Oh, okay.
I was thrilled to see that Cisco's WebEx product is front and center here. So.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, that's always good. So where are you living now?
So I moved to San Francisco.
Oh, fun. This is a time in your life to do that. What a
Yeah,
fun
no, absolutely.
experience.
Yeah, I was curious about another thing too, and maybe this is unrelated. I don't want to take away from the topic of the session, but do you guys offer any interviewing tactics or interviewing sessions? I know that was really valuable when I was an undergrad.
Yes. Yeah, so we can focus that hour on whatever topic is most beneficial to you. So I do a ton of mock interviews. So if you are prepping for an upcoming interview or just being proactive, we can do that. If you have a specific job and send me a job description, then I can even tailor it directly to that posting, or we can do a more general interview. It just depends on what you want or need.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I'm guessing this group doesn't have any more questions for today, which is totally great, totally fine. As Catherine's already said, feel free to just email me anytime if you'd like to set up a career coaching appointment. And, of course, stay tuned for our next webinar in December, which really is going to be just an open forum Q&A. So if you come up with other thoughts and you want to be able to ask Catherine lots of questions outside of a career coaching session, feel free to join next month's webinar, and we'll be taking most of those questions in advance.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for having me. Thanks everybody for sticking around, and I hope to meet with some of you in the next few months.
Thanks so much. You all have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.